Hello, this is Andy, and I'll be talking about Module 6 video posts about invitee and premises liability. And out of the 5 major duties owed to the invitee by the landowner, I'll be talking about the duty to provide proper medical assistance and a policy that would limit my liability as an owner and why I think it'd be effective. And so, with regards to the duty to provide proper medical assistance, under the Restatement of Torts, Section 314A, a possessor of land who holds it open to the public is under similar duty to members of the public who enter in response to his invitation. So, this similar duty is that the landowner owes first aid to anyone that is injured or ill, or that the owner has reason to believe is injured or ill, and to provide them with first aid until someone else can come and provide it for them. And so we've kind of seen this in this module with both premise liability as well as participant. With participant, the Gettysburg case where that lacrosse player collapsed and died of cardiac arrest and there was no medical equipment or personnel on site. And with premises, you see this a lot with fitness centers or recreational centers, and I'll go on and talk about that later on in the video as well. And so the policy that I would put in place, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of, let's say, the owner of Empower Field at Mile High. So a pretty big stadium holds about 76,000 people. And the policy I would implement to limit my liability of the duty to provide proper medical care is to have the proper amount of AEDs on site. That seems to be a pretty big issue with the cases that have set precedent for this. So the proper amount of AEDs, let's say 1 per section inside the stadium. Part of that policy, I would have every aisle usher as well as ticket scanner become certified in first aid and CPR. And I would also make sure that the appropriate amount of EMTs and ambulances were stationed outside the stadium as well as within the stadium. And so a case that set, pretty big precedent with the AEDs. So there's a couple. So the first one is Lamons v. the School District of Lee County. And that court said, I know this varies state to state as well, but that court stated that even though there's no common law to have to provide an AED, it'll really limit liability just to have one there. And it seems these days that it is a requirement to have AEDs, at athletic stadiums, fitness centers, etc. Not exactly sure, but that precedent kind of ties into the Miglino v. Bally Total Fitness in 2013. And in that case, the defendants were not held liable because they had an AED available. And in that case, the racquetball player had collapsed, and there was a trained person at Bally Total Fitness who knew how to use an AED, but he deemed it unnecessary because that person was still breathing. And it turned out that person had later died in the hospital. And the New York Court of Appeals declined to include language of the duty to actually use the AED into the already specific statutory language of just necessarily providing an AED. So here is another example of just providing an AED for someone who became ill or injured incredibly limited the liability on the defendant. And so the way I would implement this is after, going through risk assessment and coming up with a plan and actually implementing this plan. So first I would have, before the season, have every aisle usher at the stadium. So every single section, have them certified in CPR and first aid, so that in case someone had collapsed in the concourse outside the section or in their seats, there's someone readily available to provide assistance until someone else can take care of that individual. So that covers liability there. The next one would be to obviously provide the proper amount of AEDs on site. And so if we have 1 per section, that covers a ton of ground within the stadium from lower level on up to the top level of the stadium. And so just having an AED there and having individuals who are certified to use it would definitely cover liability. And then, of course, having the proper amount of EMTs and ambulances stationed outside the stadium as well as within the stadium. And so, with all these policies in place, I believe I would significantly reduce my liability as an owner for the duty to provide proper medical assistance. And I think it'd be very effective. I think that no matter what the emergency or medical issue, we would be ready as an entire facility to take care of it. And so, with all those in place, I have fulfilled my duty to provide medical care to the invitees and provide first aid until someone else could help them out.